Goodness.
Hey there, you've wandered onto the VUC, a weekly conference produced by IP Communications and VoIP Community. We would like to thank Simwood.com. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com. You can get a URL that people can click to call you at onsip.com/getonsip. Speaking of SIP, we use the best PSTN and SIP conference bridge in the world, zipdx.com. Our website at vuc.me is on bluehost.com. And thanks to Voxbone for our world local rate dial-ins. And guess what? I'm not going to tell you about Kameio World because it's next week. So see you there. Michael is going to introduce the session.
You have echo, Randy.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, so people are looking at something completely strange right now because they're seeing the Spark session. So today we have Vlad, who is with Cisco, lead software engineer, and he is going to tell us all about Spark. And we have been playing with it for the last couple of hours. But that doesn't leave us well positioned to really get started. So Vlad, thank you for taking the time. Everybody's seeing the Spark session, and this is how we're going to keep it, at least for the time. So welcome. And first of all, we always ask everybody this question. It's a really good question, especially in your case, I believe. So before we get into Spark, how did you get started in technology? What has been your path to this point?
I started more than 30 years ago, and initial part with the technology was Texas Instrument programmable calculator. And I exhausted its functions within about several months with some of the programs which allow me to land moon lander on the moon and fly around the moon and orbiting, and switch pretty much to the programming side on mainframes. Back then in Soviet Union, it was very difficult to access personal computers, and approximately 1 year later, I was able to get one for obscene amount of money. And here we are. I mean, basically 30 years later, I'm talking to you. Telecommunication has been my passion for past, I would say, more than 20 years now. And I work for multiple different companies. Built one of the biggest IVR company in the world when I was part of the American Online. And did call centers and many different things, and work for R&D part of the Cisco, and right now I'm part of the operations for Cisco telephony. So everything about telephony, it's my passion, my life, and hobby. This is why I know you guys, and I'm happy to be panelist as well as a presenter.
I'm going to be obtuse for a moment. I'm going to say that you live in a world without jitter buffers, which makes me jealous.
And you actually bring in a very interesting story. And I was telling you an hour ago that this stream, what I'm actually talking right now, it's a VPN communication, which brings me to my corporate network to Raleigh Triangle. And I'm not too far from Randy. I'm right now in Anglet. It's south of France. And from Randy, it's about 250 kilometers, something like that, right, Randy? And Randy on mute.
Further reason to be jealous. You're very near.
That is correct.
Good line, I'm sure.
So, and I'm one of a few people actually fortunate to time after time go to Bordeaux and meet Randy in person. And it's absolute pleasure talking to him as well as in person, not virtually. Virtually, of course, I mean, you guys are doing pretty much every week, but what enormous pleasure to actually talk to Randy in life. I haven't got a chance to listen his music yet, but it will come. Unfortunately, my life is too busy.
It's all available free online, folks. Go to randyresnick.com.
Again, I prefer to do everything in person. Regardless, I actually a specialist on remote communication and bringing the world together.
Okay, then you can come July 1st, Vlad. Come to Bordeaux. It's a Saturday night.
July 1st, it's a date.
Yeah, I'm playing.
I'll try to make it. I'll check if we have late train back to Bayonne. If we don't have late train, I'll stay overnight in Bordeaux.
Great.
But otherwise, so now about stuff what we actually communicating and how we do that. It's a brand new product from Cisco, and brand new, I'm talking about in-house development from scratch. A few years ago, our leader joined Cisco and decided to design similar to startup technology within Cisco instead of acquiring companies. So, and it was a created brainstorm group, and as a part of the brainstorm, eventually come out this wonderful product. It's called Cisco Spark. And Cisco Spark, it's a central point of all imaginable communication what we have. So what we do right now, we talk right now over FAT clients. And these FAT clients allow us to communicate with a really good quality video as well as audio. So video transmission, it's H.264, and audio transmission, it's Opus. And because it's Opus, it's allow us to transmit wideband and with a really good audio quality. But on the top of it, what is allow us actually Spark itself. Yeah, if you integrating Spark as a part of the enterprise, it allows you to plug in Cisco Unified Call Manager. And Cisco Unified Call Manager can actually make calls into your Spark client like regular call. It becomes like an extension. So let's say, let's take my case. I'm stationed in the south of France, and when I was relocated from Silicon Valley, my extension still remained in the United States. People calling this extension, and they see me visually, actually on their phone, the same way how you're seeing right now me through the client, and able to communicate. So there is a transparent connection over here, and we able to do pretty much all over the world. If I have to go to Berlin, for example, or England, is going to be exactly the same. So my extension allow me to transmit pretty much with the same registration point. Which is give you absolutely incredible option for the mobility and allowing you to work. Also, one of the crucial points, We know when we get remote from your office, mobile charges become obscene if they're not set up with the special providers. And with Cisco Call Manager, it's your extension. It's exactly the same how you're making calls from United States. Regardless, it's an audio call or video call. Video call done within the enterprise and within Cisco Spark. So if I have a list of people connected on Cisco Spark, I'm able to communicate. So what else it gives me in terms of the communication? Cisco Spark allow you to create some of the spaces, and the spaces for the communication for different projects. Let's say we're trying to set up that stuff. Let's say we're trying to build up a robot, and we want to make robot arm which does some stuff. Let me share my screen, and you can actually see what's going on. Okay, screen share.
Now, I should say, while you're doing that, we're doing something a little anomalous here in that we're taking a Cisco Spark session, and in my case, I'm running the Windows FAT client, and I am screen scraping that to present it into a Hangout for our usual production path. But we have Randy, and earlier we had James connected to the Spark session. So everything that you're seeing here, I move my mouse around, is within the Spark session. And in this particular case, you're seeing a screen share on Vlad's system retrieved through Spark on my system.
I think I'm still here. I think I just popped off the end.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, James is here, and okay. So here's the demo, what we have, and let's say I want to share some of their PDF files. Let me see if I have a PDF over here on the screen. Yeah, it's hidden. It was hidden. So this is that. Okay, so we have this file pocket PDF. I'm just simply dropping in on a shared environment. I can actually put some notes here. There, PDF we talked about. And it will transmit. Right now, what you actually see, it's not FAT client. You see actually Firefox web version, and I'm pretty much able to manipulate like with a FAT client. But the difference is between web version and FAT client. FAT client allow you to do good audio quality for their audio transmission as well as video transmission. Where web, it's not exactly perfect. I mean, you're still able to communicate. We don't have much control over video quality, and it's a little bit pain about that. So when this PDF would be transmitted, you have to guys remember also, I'm using right now 2 different video streams with HD quality transmission. So we use I use two different computers with HD quality video transmission as well as a web sharing session. And at the same time, I'm transferring audio data. And what you see, it's pretty much all of this come together at the same time. Now, PDF gives us ability to share to all of the participants in this session, and this is quite remarkable because you have not only possibility to keep all of this information between all of the group who is participating in this discussion, but also track changes when it comes to it. So, for example, if right now it's a 0.4 version on this file, I can actually, if I have the same name, I can update and it will have a brand new revision on exactly the same file. So if we have multiple people working at the same time on the same exact document, let's say Word document, we have multiple revisions coming together at the same time, and it is quite remarkable. Also, what it does, it does allow us Spark to include some of the bots. And the bots quite remarkable. Bots, it's an API to external facilitators. Like, for example, if you have some company and let's say you have some creative idea, whatever idea it can strike you, I don't know, like a manipulation of the space shuttle coming through the Spark, we can do that. So basically, you create an API and you bring in the API together through the Spark client, and authentication would be done through the Spark, and all of the participants in the same group would be able to space shuttle manipulation in real time. So, or some surgery, for example. It's exactly the same stuff. So you can have a video transmission as well as sharing some documents and discussing what you can possibly do. So how bots work, and here's a very interesting example. Cisco developed in-house some of the translators, and some of the translators created as a bot communication. So let's say we have a French product vacuum machine, and we would like to translate a description to this product. So what we do, we take a description, we place to Spark, and we ask him to translate this to English, because not everybody understand French, except Randy. So, and what we have immediate response from the translator bot, which translated to fairly decent quality, not just fairly decent, excellent quality, I would say, language, readable for humans. Let me enlarge this a little bit. So vacuum cleaner that both powerful, silent, and eco design. This possible with blah blah blah, and you can see quality of the translation done to really good human readable format. Hopefully, at some point, we would be able to translate a normal human language, but it's not immediate. I mean, we need to have the same quality speech recognition system. So, we have also good explanation what is bots and how bots are differentiated between integration, and all of the applications create interaction with your channels. So when you bring in when you bring in bot to the system, you actually assigning bot to a specific channel, and it's quite brilliant. Here's the list of the bots, and we have all kinds of bots developed right now, like for example from Chinese simplified translator. Also, actually, it's a Chinese simplified translator. It's from English to Chinese, to be exact. To French, to German, etc. So, and also we have some of the examples. Examples can be found on a GitHub at the Cisco Spark. Some of the examples quite cool, like for example, GitHub bot, which every time you do commit, description would be placed in a channel, in a specific channel for the commit. Also, there are possibility to send to integrate your channel to RC bot. VUC, for example, right now, we have IRC channel where people communicate, and we can actually integrate Spark bot to VUC channel. Now comes the best part about that, about current offerings. Spark is free to sign up. So basically, if you do in a limited fashion, if you do up to 3 people communication, it's free. And this is quite nice. And it gives you also ability for the document exchange and do similar communication what we have right now. Of course, I mean, we had to, in order to have so many people participating at the same time in conference, we need to have commercial version present at the same time. And this is a reason why we have this power user, Ariana, who allow us to bring up multiple people. So now, if you would like, we can try to show some of the stuff like with a FAT client, but in terms of the functionality, what web client do, FAT client doesn't come too far in terms of the functionality. But if Michael can show us his desktop, it would be nice.
Okay, so you're seeing my desktop now. Oh, hang on, I've got my video turned off. No, there. So many windows, so little time. There we go. Now you can see me back. So you are in fact seeing. Hang on.
I see my desktop right now. I don't see
your desktop. So how do I do that?
Oh, you're transmitting. You're transmitting right now to the.
Right.
Got it.
So if you turn off your desktop, then I will see the FAT client, like so, and now I can do things like this because I'm seeing. So I see you and I see all the guys down below, and I can see there's chat, and we had various different chat things going on. And coming back to here, we have a whiteboard. Hey, we have a whiteboard. Let's add a new whiteboard. And so now we've got a whiteboard and we can ask questions. Or, well, such like that. What do people actually do with these? And what would it says share live. So there we go. Now you can draw on the whiteboard too, I'm presuming. So I would say, proving that I did not take art. So let's erase that.
But I can't. I just tried to draw something rude on your whiteboard and failed.
No, well, somebody drew something. I'm seeing something going on over there. I'll pick a different color.
Oh, there we go.
Now, clearly, I'm not in the target market for this. Oh, it's a transistor, and it's going to ground by way of a resistor. Don't you know, James, resistance is futile.
That's me, but it's not great. Here, I was trying to draw a Colpitts oscillator, but it's hard to do on a whatever you call it, touchpad.
Exactly.
Wait, let's.
So
Yeah.
hard to do with a mouse. So I'm going to erase some of the.
What's the cathode? I already forgot.
So that would bring us nicely into the Spark board. Is that something we can talk about as well? Because
Yeah.
we're doing whiteboarding. So.
Yes, absolutely. So we have right now one of the really cool products right now released. It's a telepresence board which allow you to do Spark together with a whiteboard. So it's like a gigantic TV, and you have ability to do what Michael did right now with the sharing, and I did a little smiley, angry face up in the corner over there, and
I have a picture of it just behind you now, or below you now. I dragged a browser window up that's showing the Spark board.
So and beauty about Spark board, I mean, from the telepresence unit, people can do pretty much like a whiteboard in a regular office, and that is immediately transmitted across the entire world. And people can do correction, they can do some of the remarks, and of course you can make a recording of it. And that is absolutely brilliant about that.
Mm-hmm. And can you use as a base of it something other than white? So could we start with some kind of a more evolved thing and then mark it up, as opposed to, because I can't see somebody, if you're gonna write on a CAD drawing, you have to sort of, I can't see somebody drawing on a from scratch. But
I'm not sure if we can do different colors. I don't use whiteboard for my stuff, unfortunately.
Okay.
Usually it's a shared presentation and discussions about some of the configuration stuff and document review. And that is a bit different from current experience, what we're trying to do. But I can see totally how in R&D it's need to be done. Like, for example, if you have a joint team pretty much across the entire world, and you have European, American, Indian, and Chinese group, and all this joint team need to actually participate in it, we can do all kinds of fun stuff with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and clearly, you, like myself, if you're working from a home office environment, these kinds of things, which are intended to go into a conference room where a group might meet and reach out to you, but these are things like that whiteboard are really in service of the people who are in the bigger conference room, not so much you, because you're right in front of your computer, right? So context plays a role. All right. Well, this is actually pretty slick. And I'm just playing with the FAT client and showing the different things, people's files. So if I wanted to show you a file, or, well, what do? I would add a file here, or?
You can add file. You can add Word, for example, and it will have really cool preview for the Word.
How about if I have PowerPoint?
You can have PowerPoint, and PowerPoint will have a PowerPoint view.
And how do I add? Do I just drag it over to there?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to grab something from my ZipDX realm here. Here we go. This is actually a PDF.
No, somebody calling someone.
Skype.
Yes, it's Dave Michael calling me. Well, I couldn't drag a PDF over there. Let me see about the PowerPoint. There we go. It's into the files strip. It didn't let me do that. How do I have to do it?
It will turn to different. Let me see.
Why don't you go ahead and do it at your end, and we'll see it. Well, I suppose.
I have to show this on a browser, and I already showed that. Let me do this. Come on. Let me see if I can create something.
So while we're doing that, who's the target market? Because I mean, some people are going to be, too small for this. Some people, I don't know about too big. Who's your target market?
No, actually, from regular individuals with free accounts to big enterprises and small companies as well. So if you have, for example, engagement with certain companies and you have a process which requires installation, and as far as my understanding, you do. So when you do engagement with a company, you have approximately, let's say, a month or maybe 2 months installation process or pre-configuration process, architectural review, etc. So you need to have a document exchange and stuff like that. Instead of sending and shooting this over email, which is absolutely insane, you're doing this through the Spark, and it's quite easy and simple on many different levels. So if you don't have a large company, pricing actually it's quite nice. I mean, it's I believe it's $25 per seat requirement, and it will go for up to 25 participants for the call, and you will have not much limitations in terms of the space and communication. You have to take a look on exact offer and what is over there. So let me save this presentation, and we can actually see how it will come out. So let's say this.
Oh, I put that completely. Oh no, it's gone to another monitor. Well, that's confusing to me. Hang on. We're going to do that differently. You must be over here now, and then over there.
So you want to put share in the same over here?
I've taken it away. It keeps moving from place to place. Over here,
demo.
yeah.
Demo with the English.
There we go.
Over here.
So if we do that in the files, or in the, or here number 2, like over here. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I see that. Okay, so I'm looking at that file right there, which I can then take a quick look at and still see you around it. I can move you around. Cool. And then excellent. Well, that's interesting. So I can see it without necessarily having access to it. I'm just looking at a preview.
So
hang on, Randy shared a photo. We'll go back to that.
Yeah, this is really exciting stuff. It's the fan speeds, but I just wanted to show that because you were having trouble putting documents on. It's actually very easy, but there's a little plus at the bottom of the chat. Is what you do.
And you have to click send. If
you have to
you
click
create in comment, you need to click
enter.
send.
Yeah, you have to hit enter. That was the non-intuitive part. Click enter.
No,
Hit enter.
intuitive. Right. So, Michael, if you can switch to VUC demo selection, you can actually see the file what I share, and it will have nice preview.
Okay, just a second.
It's only one page.
Down here, we got that one, and that's the presentation one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So if I were to do that, what I would do is I would say down here, do an attachment, and I would just come out to we'll go to work-related stuff. Okay, we'll do that, which is a PowerPoint slide set. Now, do you see that, or where does it show?
No, I don't see that because I'm not part of the Hangout, so it's
no,
a different
it's
screen.
demo. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, whatever the case may be, that's fine.
It's okay.
I'm still seeing the whiteboard share. There we go. I just didn't click enter to actually send it, so it now moves on and becomes. Oh, that was a PDF as well. Boom. Cool. So you can then download that or view files. There we go. So you can handle a lot of documents. You can handle video. We're kind of manhandling the video because we're feeding things to it that are not normal webcams, and we're also, manhandling the audio. How does it interact with other things in the Cisco world? So does it fits and works and plays well with a call manager? How about video conference endpoints and stuff like that?
Video conferencing, the way how it's done, we use telepresence and for video conferencing and WebEx, and we have a backend communication with WebEx, both WebEx and telepresence. So all of the within corporate world registration with telepresence would actually communicate with Spark the same exact way how we do right now with the Fed clients or web clients. And WebEx is pretty much the same. However, there are some minor differences, like right now we have multiple HD screens communicating with each other. With WebEx, it will transmit active participant in HD. But you will see still roster the same way as we do right now.
Interesting. And okay, so it's if you're a Cisco house, it should be pretty seamless. Then
you have to understand, Cisco is a giant company, right? I mean, we have 80,000 employees all over the world, and transmit HD tall video quality. It's a big challenge also for us because in the morning when it's happening in the United States, everybody try to communicate, right? I mean, normal business hours, and we want to have experience top notch, and every single person within corporate network basically transmit approximately megabit or several megabit video transmission, and if we transmit it from the telepresence equipment, so we have to account for all of that, and that is happening pretty much daily. So and data in terms of the audio, it's also enormous. I mean, yes, it's challenging, but at the same time, it's wonderful. I mean, instead of coming to United States pretty much on a quarter base, I can come once a year or maybe once in 2 years.
And how does this change culturally? How does this change some things about how you do business. For example, do people get sort of grumpy if they have to take a telephone call and it's not video enabled? Or, I mean, are there hierarchies of preferences or this sort of thing?
No, people is not exactly people. From my understanding, one thing what have changed drastically. Your ability for mobility create interesting paradigm. You actually able to participate in communication in any place around the world at any given moment, and that is creating very interesting stuff. I mean, naturally we have to work normal hours. But at the same time, if we have urgent stuff, and all of the companies do, we can actually solve this pretty much in any part of the world. I mean, we can bring up people and have a decent communication and solve the problem together. Of course, it was used to be with WebEx, but Spark bring us to the next level for the document communication. And that is quite a drastic impact on overall. One really cool part, every single channel, what you actually see over here, it's encrypted. And encryption allows to feel safe about you're not going to have corporate proprietary information shared across unwanted territory, and people can actually snoop on your basically corporate property. I mean, it's quite important for companies to have intellectual property to keep intact until its release. And for that exact purpose, like for example, I'm using fake accounts over here, like Ariana. Ariana is not a real person; it's a fake, fake known as existing account. My name is Vlad M. Also, I'm not using my corporate account for this exact purpose because it's a proprietary. I mean, it's intellectual property information which I would not want to disclose to mass public around the world. So, but encryption, it's wonderful, safe notion that we can be safe, and we can go to, let's say, airport lounge, and I know my communication it's encrypted. This is really nice feeling. Let me put it this way.
Yeah, that's true. And so all of this is well, a lot of this is WebRTC, or there's some WebRTC involved in it. That is, you have WebRTC
involved on a web client, and if you notice, web client demanded for video communication to enable Firefox instead of Chrome. Mm-hmm. And there is an interesting reason for that.
Well, H264, right?
Exactly. We Cisco open H264 to entire world. Basically, you can go to open H264, download, compile, and use for your own purposes. It's free for you because we Cisco paying licenses for that. Basically, this library is maintained and it's absolutely legal. We went through legal department and all of the hoops and stops. We're paying to MPEG consortium required fee, and you guys can use H.264 free of charge. And it will be as long as Cisco using H.264 open for you guys. So please use, and unfortunately, folks from Google, it's not so eager to use H.264. They are going in favor of the VP8 and VP9. But for that exact purpose, we use Firefox.
Sure, because Firefox they jumped on board that open H.264 project. So let me whisper this in your ear. H.265, what about it, hey?
Unfortunately, the way how Impact Consortium required pay licenses for H.265, it's nuts. And I don't think we can find loophole over there. The reason is H.265, what they do right now. They demand profit share from the usage of the H.265 on an annual basis. And we can't possibly do anything out of it. I mean, we cannot.
The word is onerous. They have onerous license terms that are, completely revolve around consumer applications, which is just unfortunate. On the other hand, to their credit, they were able to do the first Ultra HD live broadcast from space, in the space station this past week, which was kind of nice. So.
Yeah, and by the way, you heard Elon Musk speech about he planning to by 2019 launch more than 4,000 satellites with a latency less than 20 milliseconds. I don't know how he's gonna pull it, but still, I mean, it would be remarkable to see video transmission going over such network of the satellites.
Let's see, low Earth orbit so low that they're actually
no. Actually, it's a geostationary. It's a geostationary orbit. So we're talking about 1,000. Between 1,000 to 1,200 kilometers in the geostationary level.
How's he going to accelerate the speed of light?
I don't know. You heard about gravity waves. Wormhole.
Yeah.
Maybe he discovered the wormhole.
I don't know. I don't know. If anybody could do it, although, the guy who also founded the Boring Company. Well, there you go. Sorry, we're digressing.
Yeah.
So James, you come from a big corporate environment, but you're blessedly free of it now. How does this fit into what you might have experienced in the past? Would it have been useful? Did you have something like this?
Yeah, we tried all kinds of things. Trying to work out which microphone I'm on. Can you hear me?
So are we.
Twice in stereo.
Yeah, I have got about 5 different screens, and they've all got different views of Vlad and company, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. Yeah, we tried most things. I think one thing I haven't tried is Slack until today, but we tried everything else. Skype in all of its various forms. Skype for business.
Radio Michael, mute yourself.
What?
Now it's better.
No, I just muted James in the Hangout. So keep talking, James.
I
muted you in the Hangout so that now you're only talking in Slack or in not Slack.
Can you hear me in Spark?
Yeah, in Spark. And Spark is being bridged over to the Hangout. So if you talk in Spark,
okay.
We hear you everywhere.
Oh, crikey. Yeah, so what are we using at the moment? We're using a mixture of Wire and Slack at the moment. So Vlad, you have to do a bit of a job on me to convince me to use Slack as well. It's not to use Spark as well. So if you had to compare Slack with Spark, what can you highlight immediately that Slack can't do?
Oh, you're muted.
And in all fairness, we should probably I don't know why my video is black, but in all fairness, Vlad is not a commercial salesperson for Spark. He's has a totally other job description. He's an engineer who works in other things. He was kind enough to present it, so he may not be the right person to ask. Go ahead, Vlad.
What I believe, I'm not much familiar with Slack. Let me put it this way. But one of the biggest part, it's naturally bots and APIs what we have. So if you a company like, for example, Michael's company or any small company up to, let's say, several hundred people, and you have decent product revolving around voice. Basically, Spark, it's absolutely incredible platform to build something around it. And why is that? For my opinion, it's incredible because you create your business offering on the top of the Cisco platform. And Cisco, it's a big fat company in the sense of the sales and distribution. And I see Spark within very short period of future jumping in a commercial wagon with a different corporations. And also government organizations. We have to understand, I mean, basically security is one of the biggest things what we require for the government. And if you create some really good business offering around Spark, you will enable Cisco offering together with your own, and basically you'll be empowered by the Cisco network, and that is one of the biggest achievements, for my opinion.
Okay, you know what, Vlad, I think you're absolutely right. That is key to going forward. To have the ability to interface other systems into the core messaging video voice system. Earlier you mentioned that you could interface streams like IRC into Spark. How easy is that to do?
Let me put it this way: I haven't done yet. I haven't played, so I cannot answer on this purpose, because basically I have Cisco power behind me doing very severe heavy lifting.
So I can address that. Actually, I had a play with when it was first released. I had a go at writing a bot when the bot interface first came out for Spark. I had a go at it, and it's actually pretty easy. It's one of the easier bot interfaces. So it seemed pretty simple to me. I had it running. In fact, I think I remember running it on a BeagleBone Black. So it's not a heavy process. Admittedly, I didn't try interfacing to IRC, but that's certainly doable. I can't see why it'd be a problem. I think the only thing that's like a little bit not difficult, but kind of novel, is that Cisco Spark has its own idea about namespaces. So you've got to work with their logic about how namespaces work and how people get added to groups. And that was actually the hardest part of it, is trying to understand the kind of the model rather than anything else. Anyway, there you go. That's my sort of. There's a demo somewhere on the.
It's a great impact.
I did a demo somewhere. I'm trying to think where. Anyway, and never mind. It's certainly easy to do.
So what actually coming to Spark in the future, and I can give you some little preview. Right now, what we do pure web communication, and as I described, we also have enterprise offering when we communicate with telepresence system, and basically beautiful telepresence units which have detection of their active participants with a Zoom in future already integrated with the Spark, and that is a beautiful part. But one thing what is have not been done on a grand scale thing, we don't have meeting participants joining, or it's not yet there in terms of the offering on a personal level from the telephony perspective. So it's only offer for the enterprises and enterprises level. But I'm looking forward when we can actually open up for everybody to use, and when people can actually call on a telephony and join the same conference what we have right now. So you'll be able from regular telephone, even dumb telephone, to join pretty much anywhere. The same what WebEx are doing right now, when you can actually join VoIP as well as you can use telephony, regular telephony call to join exactly the same conference bridge. And that is a really, really nice option to have. And that would be done for the general offering. I don't know. I have to take a look on exact schedule delivery. And that is, by the way, it's my primary job. I mean, I'm responsible for the classic telephony integration with VoIP, and we also have a crossover for the video communication, etc. So
very cool.
So I have an additional question to ask, which is purely personal.
Sure.
Which is so do you get to interact with my ex-colleagues from Troppo? Because I used to work on Troppo a few years ago, and they do a lot of the telephony stuff, but they're based in San Francisco, so I don't know if you.
I know Troppo. I know Troppo pretty well. Troppo has actually one of the parts of the Troppo was part of the joint effort with Spark option, and Troppo offering in integrated part of the Spark. But what we have in terms of the Troppo, it's more like a premium type of API for the telephony and control telephony. What we have right now, Spark architecture allows us to control direct audio and video streams. And coming from the multiple providers, it's probably better to shift with direct communication and direct control. I don't know how it will work out in the future and how it would be integrated, but Troppo, yes, right now it's a part of the Spark in the integration package.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Questions from, we have some people on ZipDX. Let's see, do we? We did. Yes, we do. Yeah, Maxim. Hey, Maxim, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
You know, just so it's slightly off topic here, but you do realize that we're gluing together a Hangout and Spark and ZipDX and IRC and MPEG-3, and this is a juice.
Yes, indeed. And thanks to Michael. I mean, Michael and ZipDX done absolutely incredible job, and enormous respect coming from Cisco architectural team. Let me put it this way.
Well, we'll try and leverage that to make a living someday. So, in any event,
right now it's hobby. Yeah.
James, Randy,
Max.
we're coming up to we're at our hour. The satellite's going to shut us down.
Yeah, I was thinking we might talk about this SS7 thing if and Vlad knows what he knows about that story too as well.
Do you live in the SS7 world too, Vlad?
He knows about it.
Randy kind of described me a couple of minutes ago about issue what's happened about SS7 world, but I'm intimately familiar with SS7. So basically, in the old days, I was part of the company called Intervoice. No, it was prior Intervoice, IPverse. And IPverse, sorry about that, guys. I need to.
Now, what I wonder about is in the earliest days of my explorations of things, I got Vaughn magazine, and Vaughn magazine had all these things that I didn't understand at first, but came to have at least some passing familiarity with. And SS7 was really big back then. Well, it's still big now. The only thing is it's so deep under so many layers that it's largely a carrier thing, right? And that would never get to users.
It's always been carrier. It's always been carrier, and it's always been basically holy grail of the carriers. So one of the interesting part when you're talking with the big providers, I'm talking about largest premium top level providers in the United States. Not much people actually understand that SS7 have deep impact in integration of the VoIP, and they have no idea. For example, I mean, some of the providers have no idea how to use some of the features with from the SS7. Like, for example, a lot of things, for my opinion, whatever under their control, they can actually map ISAP messages within SIP messages and prevent a lot of fraud control. Like, for example, calling back to premium numbers, a lot of fraud evolve around this area. So when calls made to international direction, authorization going through the ISAP messages for their authorizing transaction. And all of this stuff, it's under SS7 control. And frankly speaking, large companies can actually utilize these functions to prevent fraud within their customer network. So if they have offering, they should actually use this for their customers and charge them, I don't know, 2 cents per call or something like that, which would actually assure customers that no fraud would be done on their network, because some of the cases happening with Nigerian princess running a couple of thousand doors per day just on external charges. And like I said, one wonderful possibility to prevent that is just to implement special traps within SS7 network. And what Randy described me, and by the way, what I said previously, SS7 network is not penetratable for one simple reason, because it's not exposed to regular IP network. It's absolutely separate. So whatever people did fraud associated with that, it's an inside job.
Yeah,
and it's always inside.
There has to be a social aspect to it.
Yeah,
So
well,
basically,
I'm afraid that's not totally true.
Yeah, I was going to try to
because
get
you can-
James.
Yeah,
Try to get James
yeah,
to
you
get
can
in.
get into the SS7 remotely using SIGTRAN, which is basically SS7 over IP. And one of the issues is that a number of operators have left ways open so that third parties can sneak their way back into the SS7 and then do all kinds of really bad things. In fact, the standard thing that is being discussed in this article that Brandy's put up now is the art of redirecting both voice traffic and SMS traffic to a third-party location. And then if you're really skillful, what you then do is you then reflect it back down to its original intended delivery point. So you end up with a man-in-the-middle type interception set up. And there have been a number of cases of this reported quite widely in the press. I mean, one of the highest profile examples was where the Chancellor of Germany had her phone hacked by a Western intelligence agency. But it's also very, very common on the other side. So,
I was just going to say that the kind of thing, the kind of man-in-the-middle attack that you described sounds like something that somebody who could compel the compliance of a major carrier would jump on just quickly.
Without knowledge of the internal infrastructure for the SS7 network, because remember, each of the F-link or A-link what you have in the SS7 network, it's authorized transactions. They are responsible for the authorization or between the class 4 or class 5 switches for the relationship. And that is quite substantial relationship in terms of the SS7 carriers, because data transmission going over there in obscene level. We're talking about regular A-Links 64K. It's a pure data transmission which compressed in a very dense communication for the authorization. Each of the message during the handshake receive authorization transaction for the is it permittable for this particular call or not permittable for this call between the switches. So the same story about SMS messages. So and within each of the ISAP messages have information who authorized this transaction and who is going to pay for it. And that is if somebody left backhaul within IP network and allowed somebody to tap on the SS7 network, then we're talking about serious breach of the security, and this company simply
yes, we are, and there are a number of operators still out there doing this. And if you want to see an example, there are a couple of German gentlemen who hopefully will be joining us at Camileo World next week, who demonstrated redirecting or intercepting the voice traffic and SMS traffic from an Australian government minister in Berlin. And this was on Australian TV, primetime TV. And the Australian government minister did not believe it until they produced tapes of the conversation and examples of or the text that was going across the SMS channel.
But
I can understand.
If I understand Randy's case in point, which is where there's serious money to be made, is that everyone's using SMS as a second factor for authentication, particularly people like banks. So high-value customers are getting SMSs to verify their logins. And if you can sidetrack that SMS, then you can probably take over a big transaction and send it off to somewhere else. And that, if I understand it correctly, was what was described in that document. So I think that the days of SMS as a second factor auth are very much numbered. I think that's and the idea that, I mean, all of these networks where you say, hey, you know, it's so closed, so safe because it's closed on the outside. It never turns out that way. Everyone's always lazier than you'd hoped, and there's always another link in somewhere that you'd forgotten about. And in the end, you know, that kind of hard shell network architecture never works in the long term.
Isn't that what they call just security by obscurity?
I actually disagree over here for one simple reason, because lately, I would say past year, maybe two, no longer a full number for the SMS transmission displayed on the display when you do authorized transaction. So, for example, if you have a cell phone and it will show you part of the cell phone, so either last a couple of digits or in the middle a couple of digits, whatever it's transmitted partially. So basically, for the hackers, it would be extremely difficult to intercept. So they have to log into database, decrypt field associated with a phone number for the second channel communication, and utilize this second channel communication for their spoofing transaction on a SS7 network, which is
one thing I'd say about that. That's not true in every scenario. And if you have a proper real mobile network operator communicating with another real mobile network operator, you cannot obscure all of the signaling data because you need it to make the system work. But you're right, there is a lot of obscuring going on. So, for example,
James, one example for you. If you utilize in United States, most of the American folks start using Google numbers for their communication, and Google number is SMS capable. So Google number hooked up to backend of the Google network, and when SMS transmitted to Google network, it goes through the encrypted communication. So when you're looking inside the Hangout, it's just the same SMS. But when bank does a transaction authentication, it will happen specifically outside of the SMS network, because it will happen between the bank and Google.
Yeah, but the trunk signaling is still SS7 until it gets into Google. So I think the insecure bit is not the Google bit; it's what happens before. But and you have to say that there's a lot more you can get out of the signaling than just the traffic. So, for example, if you want to track the physical location of an individual, you can do that quite easily by manipulation of the SS7 as well.
Yes, true. Absolutely.
So, yeah, we used to play a little game. Where in the world is Tim? Not you, Tim, but a different Tim. One of our colleagues used to do a lot of traveling around the world, and we used to sort of follow him using his SS7 signaling just to find out where he was and why not.
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, but banks in the United States require to pass through the PCM certification, and PCM certification required to have certain steps for the encryption, including database encryption for the fields, and in order to understand who is going to authenticate with whom and how it's going to happen, you must know which number he is authenticating with. So if you have a phone number or mobile phone number of the person, it's not necessarily this person would actually use this mobile number for the authentication, because like I said, Google does it wonderfully for free for the SMS communication, as well as voice communication within the United States, and banks can perfectly actually transmit SMS with in between. So you're not going to know even which number it's going to be.
If I remember rightly, a lot of second factor auth people don't allow you to use Google Voice numbers. They'll detect a Google Voice number and reject it because it's not seen as being secure. So I'm not sure that that's a particularly good example, actually.
Yeah, it's a good example. It's a good example. There is a wonderful, I would say, road back. Backhaul to how to get the number. So go to any of the store, pick up mobile phone, prepaid mobile phone, get a beautiful number, whatever you want, and later on do local number portability with Google. You're done. This number would actually look the existing provider.
Right, but then you've weakened the signaling, because the signaling goes through the original provider, or is offered to the original provider first and then to Google. So you've lost your security step there, because you now have the data bouncing around first. That's how portability works, as far as I understand it.
You didn't lose anything for one simple reason, because yes, I agree with you. It's bouncing through the STP within provider. Actually, it's not bouncing within provider, because routing set within STP. But the way how Google will do that stuff. So you authenticate when it was mobile, and you're not advertising this number anywhere. You have
what
only
is the best, in the opinions of this esteemed group, which I can hear myself coming back, so I'm not talking clearly. So, you know, when they allow the Google Voice numbers, I just get the confirmation code via email, which is so insecure, it's absurd. The other thing is to use the Google app, which is the authenticator. What are the best suggestions for this problem of two-factor authentication, though? Because obviously the phone thing is not going to be great if you've got 200K in a bank someplace and you think you're doing a good job.
Well, yeah, I can give you a top tip. The security or insecurity of mobile networks varies between mobile networks. One thing that you can do, if you want to find out how secure or insecure your network is, there's a wonderful Android application called Snoop Snitch, which is produced by Luca and his team in Berlin. What it does is that it probes all of the different signaling possibilities on your network, and then reports back to you how secure or insecure your particular network is. And another thing that it'll do is, if you're wandering around and you end up hanging off an IMSI grabber, that's a fake mobile base station. It'll detect that and tell you that you've been IMSI grabbed. And the reason that Luca and his team are doing this is that a copy of that data is then fed back into Berlin, and they then produce world maps showing which networks are secure and which networks are relatively insecure. So the reason they do that is they're ethical hackers. They're trying to increase the awareness of which networks are good and which networks are bad, to kind of shame them into doing something about it. But of course, if you're a nefarious bad person, you just look at the heat map and you just go for the insecure networks and kind of attack through there, don't you?
So
yes.
To answer Randy's question about 2FA, if you're going to not use SMS, I think there are two. For banking, you always want to go for a physical token like this with a number on it, because then you've got an item that isn't connected. It's a non-connected device. So that's a nice.
I disagree with you, Tim. I don't like items like this, which carry on that one, because they're a pain in the arse to deal with. My favorite authentication means is biometric, because I can't lose my face or my voice.
Yeah, it's hard to revoke though, James. You've only got 10 fingers. You can't. Once you've got through them, you can't revoke any more fingerprints. So I mean, I take your point. I mean, I like the touch stuff for a lot of things, but I think for banking, for something where you think you might want to revoke it, and I think these things are good. And then for Google, I think anyone who's using Gmail or Facebook seriously and has got a presence they want to worry about should be using one of these, a YubiKey, as the second factor auth for Google, GitHub, and Facebook.
I disagree. I would disagree with you, Tim. I mean, how much do you
wait?
How much do you trust that YubiKey? First. Do you know who made it?
Actually, I do. A bunch of Swedes who Mr. Johansson introduced me to. So that, as it turns out, I do have some traceability back to its manufacturer.
Yeah, it's like using the same argument about SIM cards. You know, SIM cards are secure. You can't crack those. You can't get the cryptographic key variables out of that. All I have to say is Gemalto.
But that, I mean, I agree to some extent, but there's a big distinction, which is that on these you initialize them yourself. They don't come pre-initialized. They're simply a storage mechanism. So I get to put the keys on here. Now, okay, the program that puts the key on there could be hacked, and there are various mechanisms which could be hacked. But I think these are the current, to my mind, they're the current best practice for those three sites. You know, Facebook, Google, and GitHub all support these devices. They're all backing them, and they're all requiring their engineers to use them. So, you know, Google have a policy of you have to use these. So there's a reasonable amount of mass behind it. Whether there are better devices or better mechanisms, or whether, as you say, if it doesn't suit your kind of lifestyle, if you lose things too easily, I get that point. I don't have, I mean, I keep the YubiKey on my key ring, and I'm not lost it yet, touch wood. You have ways of backing them up.
When you do lose it, and all of a sudden you've got a self-induced denial of service attack.
Well, I mean, actually, there's
one of the substantial problem actually I see over here. It's usage very limited to computers, where you can actually plug in this key. You cannot plug in pretty much everywhere, like, for example, mobile network. If you need to have a transfer happening with your mobile network, then you're pretty much screwed at this point.
Well, so
absolutely right. That's where things like your voice and your face come in really, really handy, because voice will work over a voice circuit, and your face will work over a video circuit.
So both of those statements are wrong. This is NFC enabled, so it does work with Android devices. Admittedly, it doesn't work.
Well, it'll only work with Android devices with NFC readers, and anything else, then you're kind of stuffed.
I'm not disagreeing with you completely. I'm just saying that it's not strictly true. And I would also say that the spoofability of both voice and images are and to a lesser extent fingerprints are pretty high. So you want to be.
Yeah, but, Tim, one great example. I do love sailing. So, for example, if I'm going to sail somewhere in Pacific, and I got overboard with my key and cell phone, what's happened after? I mean, I'm completely locked out of everything, right? I mean,
well, actually, no. What you do is, and this is YubiKey's advice, is that you have a set of there's a set of printed backup keys that you keep somewhere safe, and you can use those codes to recover your account and move it onto a different YubiKey. So, I mean, there are it's an inconvenience for sure. It would take you. I mean, the bottom line is you have to get back to the safe place you kept your codes. So in that travel, you may be to some extent locked out. But it depends on what it is you're trying to protect. I mean, if you're using GitHub to host your the code for your $1 million startup, then yeah, probably relying on a password is probably not sufficient. And so there's a question of working out what is relevant and useful for your use case. And that's why I said, when I said about second factor, is if you're trying to protect something valuable, then you need to think about using one of these things. And it just depends on how valuable and whether it's worth your effort. And I totally take the point.
Actually, I totally agree with James that face, for example, and voice, it's unmistakable over here. And for example, people can actually introduce random text generator with some complicated words what you have to read from the screen, and system will determine pattern of your speech and if it's artificial or not artificial, and will ask you to do certain mimics with your face. And based on the dynamics, it can actually determine is it you or not you.
Correct. And there are other things you can do, like shining a pattern of lights on the face to determine the skin tone, to make sure that it is a real face and not.
And it's not that. And it's not that.
Yeah. And not a mask.
I met somebody who does fingerprint, has a fingerprint reader that's not optical, it's ultrasonic. And I was asking him about what the benefits were, and he said, well, there's two. One of which is that instead of seeing the fingerprint, we're actually, with the ultrasonics, we're actually seeing the vein pattern under the skin. And he said, what's more, I can tell if you've still got a pulse. So that was an interesting model.
That is everywhere. That is all of the Google Nexus devices pretty much exactly with this technology, what they use. They use ultrasonic fingerprint scanner. There is no optical over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in fact, there are a couple of webcams now. The Logitech Brio that I've got has a UV imager in it, and it reads the heat map of your face will log you into a Windows box, which I've been using. It's kind of spooky because you reboot the system and it wakes up and it looks for you, and it's constantly looking at the room. And then when you walk and you sit down in front of the webcam, it reads your face. And because it's doing a thermal image, you can't just use a picture. You actually have to be a live person in front of the thing.
But does that mean if you've got sunburnt or you've been drinking, then it won't log you in because you've got a different, or you're just embarrassed?
No, it has each dot on your face is a three-dimensional. So when optical view as well as infrared view, delta of the wave length exactly distance to your dot. So when they actually have two cameras together, they determine each pixel distance. So they have really precise information about your face and mimics of your face.
To be fair, though, the resolution of the visual image is quite good, but the resolution of the IR sensor is very coarse. So you end up with like XY data that's pretty good and Z data that's eh. But still, it's usable. Would I trust it with my bank accounts? Hell no. But but it's usable for.
Yeah, well, that actually subject immediately recall. Did you guys saw from Amazon new camera, which judging you how you dress? Any comments on it? Anybody want to put this in the house? Because I really don't want to.
There is a lot of conjecture about motivation for that.
Huh?
Are you saying this camera recognizes how you dress and identifies you?
You actually showing up over there, and you can actually change different dress, and it will say, okay, we can. This one is good, this one is not, and if you want, we can order this one from Amazon, something like that. I mean, basically.
Yes, it looks a lot like an Arlo, but it's not. It's a little taller than an Arlo, and the idea is that women would put it sort of in their closet or something, and would use it as an independent opinion when they're getting dressed.
Now imagine all of the women gonna dress in front of these cameras, and it's everything fed to Amazon.
Yeah, it's like, Alexa, how do I look?
I mean,
does this skirt make my bottom look big?
Well, what the hell they're thinking? I mean, who is going to test this device? I mean, how are they going to verify transmission if it's proper or not proper? I do
not know. I do not know. Hey, I have some news. It's back on the telecom front. There's a Facebook group that are the 2600, basically self-styled hackers, and they put up just about a half an hour ago that this device, which they have been, sorry, you can't see it, Vlad.
You can actually paste the link in a.
It's a manual switchboard.
Yeah, this thing. Oh, I can't see that either. This manual switchboard, ancient manual switchboard, they have been refurbishing and bringing back to life. There you go, Vlad. Well, you can't see it now either. Hang on.
So just paste the link. I'll pick up.
Okay, let me get it over here into the. Where'd that be? The messages.
Yeah, VUC.me.
In the messages. Hang on one second, because I'll actually drag the picture over there because I downloaded a local copy. But I got to put away some of these zillion windows that I've got there. So you should be able to see that. So this thing actually woke up and just made its first live phone call in the last half hour, 45 minutes or something like that.
Nice.
Is there a number to get into it? Can we dial into it?
I don't know. They haven't said so, but it's a 2600 group on Facebook. And
yeah, can we send it SMSs?
It on SS7.
Who would do that?
Well, and it must be on XS7 because it's got to be SS7 because it's got to be hooked up to a POTS line, right? So SS7 is the backbone of.
I have at home several candlestick phones with crank dialers.
Rotary.
I think it's one. Yeah, no, it's a crank dialer. It's not rotary dial.
Oh.
Rotary dial when you actually you cranking, it's generating where 110 volts coming from on a ring dial, exactly from the crank dialer. So when it was crank dialed, it was generated pulse and creating a ring at the operator, and operator was responding based on request. So this is interesting info about telephony architecture before predating outpost dialing, because ring, if you know ring, it's about 110 volts approximately on a transmission, and when you actually talk, I think it's about 12 volts or something like that. But when you actually cranking, it's a huge spikes.
Well, you had to have something that would create a spark that would wake the old girl up, right?
Right in the ear.
So, Randy, we've gone an hour and a half. Have we achieved nirvana? Is Randy still there? Randy has gone away. We've lost Randy. Oh, there he is.
If we leave it too late, he has to go and cook things, doesn't he?
Oh, I know.
I'm totally fine. I can go further.
Yeah, well, we haven't finished yet. There's still things we can do, which I'm just trying to do now on my phone. I've got too many devices open here, which this just makes life very, very difficult for me. There we are. I just need to write something down.
One of the things I'm very interested in doing is replicating this whole sort of setup on like an Amazon CAD VM, an NVIDIA-enabled virtual machine, so that anybody could drive this by just remotely taking control of that VM and bringing it up, because there's really no need to have all of the displays going that tie all these things together. They're all just sort of being piped from one thing into another. And yet all the software, I think all the software would run on a virtual machine. I don't think there's anything that's hardware dependent, except it does like to have NVIDIA drivers.
Oh, I'll just do it.
One of the biggest